Hello students, today we will talk about the streams of consciousness technique in To the Lighthouse. Virginia Woolf's novel To the Lighthouse dwells into the minds of its characters in a stream of consciousness approach. The characters' thought and feelings blend into one another, and the outward actions and dialogue come second to in the inward emotions and ruminations. In the dinner party sequence, for instance, Woolf changes the point of view frequently, with transitions often marked by the sparse dialogues. While shifting the point of view from person to person, Woolf develops her characters through their thoughts, memories, and reactions to each other. In chapter 15th of The Window begins with Mrs. Ramsay's wondering what she has done with her life, as she directs guests to their seats and ladles out soups. She sees her husband at the far end of the table, frowning. What at? She did not know. She did not mind. She could not understand how she had ever felt any emotion or affection for him. As she thinks about his displeasure and discontentedness with Mr. Ramsay, Mrs. Ramsay notes that she would not speak out loud her inner feelings. There is a strict difference between her actions and her thoughts. Being outside of the eddy in her sense of being past everything, through everything, out of everything. Completely out of touch with Mr. Ramsay and everyone else at the table, she instead focuses on how shabby the room is, how sterilized the men are, and how she pities William Banks. Finding meaning and strength again in her pity, she gets past her mental weariness enough to ask him a question about his letters. The point of view shifts abruptly to Lily Briscoe, who is watching Mrs. Ramsay intently and imagining her thoughts. Lily is able to read Mrs. Ramsay's pity clearly. How old she looks, how warm she looks, and how remote. She wonders why Mrs. Ramsay pities William Banks, and she realizes that the life in her resolve to live again, had been stirred by pity. Lily does not find Banks pitiable, but she recognizes that Mrs. Ramsay is fulfilling some needs of her own. Lily thinks about how Banks has his work, then her thoughts switch on to her own work, and she starts imagining her painting and the adjustment she will make. As if to remind the readers of the setting, Woolf has Lily take up the salt cellar and put it down again on a flower in pattern in the tablecloth, so as to remind herself to move the tree. After all of Lily Briscoe's thoughts, Mr. Banks finally responds to Mrs. Ramsay's inquiry as to whether he has found his letters. What damned rot they talk, thinks Charles Tansley, as a point of view shifts to him very briefly. Lily observes how he lays down his spoon precisely in the middle of his plate, which he had swept clean, as if, Lily thought, he were determined to make sure of his meals. As if she can read people's thought, Lily's attention turned to Charles Tansley as she makes observation about him. She notes that his appearance is meager and unlovely, but she is still drawn to his blue, deep-set eyes. Mrs. Ramsay pities him as well as she also asks him about his letters. Tansley's response is incorporated into the text, not as a direct quotation, as if he does not wish to join in the banal conversation, but instead wallows in his thoughts, for he was not going to talk the sort of rot these people wanted him to talk. He was not going to be condescended to by these silly women. Tansley holds the women and their way in disdain. He finds them silly and superficial. Why do they get dressed up for such occasions? He is wearing his ordinary clothes. Women did not but talk, eat. Women made civilization impossible with all their charm, all their silliness. By portraying his inner frustration, Woolf let the readers know exactly how Charles Tansley feels about dinner parties, women, and civilization as a whole. By shifting the point of view from characters to characters, Woolf shares each character's thoughts and feelings, opinions, and reactions to one another. The dynamics between the characters are expressed more fully by their thoughts than by their words. The light dialogue serves to break up the transitions in perspective by blending people's inward feelings and keeping dialogue to a minimum. Woolf develops her many-dimensioned characters in a unique and memorable way. So most of the characters, they are thinking, and by their thoughts we can guess or we can analyze their characters also.